We're live, Connor. Hit it.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Connor MacIvor and, of course, Tim Blankenship with the SCV and Schneider Show. What we've been talking about lately is comparisons, and I like to compare our show with a train driving down on a railroad in a high-gravity planet, as it's akin to taking 15 pounds of bubble gum and trying to force it into a 1-inch square hole that's been bored through a 2x4. So that's what you're going to get today, and I'm hoping you like that comparison. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, we need to use the Forrest Gump comparison. It's like goes together like peanut butter and jelly or whatever he said.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's
real estate
better,
and divorce, like peanut butter and jelly.
Every time I post this, I get all these IMs about, well, not really about what our show's about, but about, those other things that I'm going through with divorce. So that's very, so they think we're tying it together because of personal experience. So in the world, a lot going on, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's been some interesting things in the. What do you want to talk about first? The divorce updates or the real estate?
I think people are really looking at that $1.8 billion that jury awarded for agents colluding and attempting to beef up commissions and these sorts of things. I think that's something to maybe get into, how that's going to end up affecting real estate overall. It was interesting to me when I read that. And if people don't know, so basically there was a jury trial against the National Association of Realtors saying that agents were colluding and artificially inflating prices because of the relationships they had with sellers and buyers. As it is currently in the system, real estate sellers bear the burden of the commission they pay to the agent they hire to represent.
Hey, Connor, there's a lot of feedback on your mic.
Oh, is it? All right, let me try something else.
It's like clicking and yeah. So that I'll just kind of I read a couple of the articles regarding that 1.8 billion and which agencies were kind of involved, and it was interesting. I read them on the surface, so I'd be interested to get your details being in the business. Can't hear you. You got no sound, my brother. Put the music back on.
How's that?
There you go. Beautiful.
Is that better? Okay. So basically they went after, I guess, Remax and another company that's a subsidiary of Coldwell Banker. They settled out of court. So in court, they had other real estate companies there. And what they did is they basically, the jury trial found them guilty of this collusion and this keeping prices artificially high and then keeping the commission structure high as well, or basically forcing people to sign off on a particular commission or they're not going to sell their house. So it came down to that. It's going to be appealed on all levels, but it's been really big news besides, what's going on in the Middle East. So once that was posted, it was almost like there was a lot of hate that came out from a lot of different entities. And understand this, I was talking to one of the brokers that I'm close with yesterday. The price of admission into real estate, I'll be brutally honest, the price of admission to real estate is basic education, a GED here in California. So you and nothing wrong with GEDs, but there is no college required. So at 18 years old, you can study, take your test, do all the classes, take your test. If you pass it, which that test has a 50% failure rate, if you pass it, then yeah, it's very, very high. And it's because, and you've been through this at one point, it's just super tricky. It's a very tricky test. So 50%. So even when I took it, I remember back in 1998, after I was done, I wasn't impressed at all. I didn't think I did well. It was confusing. For all 4 of the multiple choice answers were correct in some way, but they're looking for something specific, but yeah. So it was difficult to pass, but anyway, even that being the case, it's not the same as getting a bachelor's degree and going to law school. It's not the same as getting your bachelor's and you going on to your master's and your whatever else comes after that for those smart people out there, or medical school or any of this other stuff. So it's very, but the commissions, the money, if you do it right, You can outrun all of these other industries by what you make. And I think that the legal issue probably isn't as heavy. I mean, 1.8 billion, yes, but on an agent to agent level, knock on wood, I try to keep everything super tight, but even that could open me up to lawsuits because anybody can sue anybody for anything.
Yeah.
But at least I've been very blessed to this point, not having to have encountered that, at least at my own doing or my own fault. So what they're doing is they're saying, these agents did this. So now that attacks the commission structure where it used to be 6%, because the seller, like I said, bears the burden of paying their agent that they hire to represent them, and then the agent that's hired to represent the buyer, or the agent that the buyer hires to represent them in purchasing of the house. So then people say, well, why can't we just have the one listing agent deal with both sides? And that's definitely legal, but only in about 7 states. I think Canada also makes it illegal. That's called dual agency, where an agent cannot represent both parties. And it kind of runs the same as the termite companies. There were some that are going out there writing up all these huge fees, and really there wasn't that much damage, or maybe no damage at all, but they were being kind of unscrupulous. The same thing occurs in the real estate world in some way, shape, or forms, where agents kind of set the stage to cause those issues. So we have this lawsuit. I believe what's going to end up happening is you have the commission structure as is. You have, in California at least, you're allowed to represent both sides. I think there's so much paperwork, so much disclosure necessary, so much that agent is now going to be held responsible for, because now they have the buyer as well. So they have both sides. What's to say that it's hard to play that? It's hard to play both sides. So what's to say they're not going to maybe say something that one of those parties wants to hear, which might not be completely accurate, but is their code that way? Are they ethically able to lie and deceive? I do see that a lot. But in this case, this lawsuit came out of that type of idea. So they see agents in that market basically keeping the prices inflated, overcharging commissions, whatever that means. Because as far as I'm concerned, my commission is negotiable, even for a buyer. Now, of course, the seller establishes it, but I've had buyers come to me and say, hey, can you help me out with this? Can you do this? It happens, and it just depends on the world. If I'm starving and haven't eaten in a month, I'd probably be more helpful than if I wasn't starving and haven't eaten. So that's kind of where that is. But this is going to affect the market this way. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I had
I'm
some
sorry.
questions on that. So going back to the using one agent, if that were the case, to your point about who are they working for at that point, themselves, the buyer, the seller, they instead of getting where if you have your own agent as a buyer, maybe they're going to try and negotiate a better price, and all the other things you can get when buying a home get thrown in there, and so forth. But it would become more of like a mediator in a sense, trying to put a deal together between both parties as opposed to representing one or the other.
True. It's unfortunate, but you almost have to try to, if you're going to represent both sides, it's not easy, because you were originally hired by the seller to seller house to represent them. You explain to them at the time of the listing appointment. And I do this. Here we go. This is going to cause us a lot of negative feedback. I don't like representing both sides on a transaction. I don't like it, because I know the seller's bottom line. So I come to sell your house, and you say, you know what, we want to sell our house for $1 million, but we would be okay with 850. So now you stuck that in Connor's brain. So
Yeah.
a buyer calls me and says, hey, you exclusively represent this house for sale on the street there in Valencia. I want to go look at it. So I take them, and they love the house. They want to write an offer, and they say, what do you think? And I said, well, the property's priced at $1 million. I have comparables that show that amount, but you're the boss, Mr. Buyer. You tell me what to do after I've given you this information in fact.
Yeah.
And then what if they say 850? They want to offer 850. What are you and your beloved going to think?
Yeah.
I
How
just
did they
sold
come
you
up with
out.
this number?
Yeah, how they come up with that. And then, at that point, I'm going to say, oh my God. And then I have to make the call, and you're going to say, I know we go way back, Connor, but really? That's one of the issues. The other thing is when it comes up to negotiation on either side, maybe I know that the seller, and I'm saying this when we're not robots, we're human beings. It's difficult to separate truth from fiction in some people's minds. Ethically, I would throw it out there. I couldn't do it because number one, God rushes and punishes me very quickly. Even before I get off the phone, if I go anywhere awry, I get slapped down. So I know that's going to happen. And then I do believe that things do come around like karma. So I was a cop for a long time, a good one. So I do believe that that really carries along with it. And I don't want to violate those rules. But they come and I know that, well, you might repair a few things, give a few $1,000s, and the buyer asks for a few $1,000s. So it becomes uncomfortable. Now, whatever the seller tells me as their agent, I have to disclose anyway. So that doesn't really preclude us from that. But if you look, I was talking to the broker yesterday, you look at a real estate contract on the buyer's side, it's 1.5 inches. There's 44 general disclosures that are included just off the get-go without anything specific.
Yeah.
If they're going to take this and use it as a cause to make real estate go the way of the travel agencies, there weren't that many lawsuits and documents and disclosures that surrounded flying on an airplane to here to another country and staying in a hotel. The travel agents did a great job. And I'll tell you, Tim, I don't know about you, but sometimes I'll still use one if it's complicated.
Sure.
You know, I'll still use a travel agent, and sometimes they have good deals. This has really kind of thrown the market into a frenzy, and it's all the haters that I think maybe had a bad experience with real estate agents, or they've been watching the real estate agent's Facebook and they got this 55-foot yacht or speedboat and they're going on another vacation to the Bahamas and they're wearing their, $100,000 Rolex watch and all this other stuff. I don't think that helps the industry either, if that makes sense. So then you have those
Yeah.
people that are like, well, what did he do? I mean, Connor really didn't do anything. He hired some guy to take some pictures and
Yeah.
he talked to us a couple times. So then they're looking at the commission structure. What's better? Should we discount it? But they've tried this before.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned travel agencies because they made that comparison in one of the articles I read about the need for agents in general. It said that you don't need a travel agent really anymore. You don't. They even said financial planners are kind of sucking wind right now because of access through Fidelity and different brokerage houses that have free investment advice from financial planners on their staff that you get for free. So the another thing I wanted to bring up regarding the lawsuit, wasn't the National Association of Realtors and like even Realtor.com, which I think might be owned by NAR, weren't they part of the supposed collusion on keeping the rates high? That's question number one. And then they also talked about that it's the lack of access to the MLS, and that's why there's that buyer's agent's commission. How would that look in listing a home if they went this route where the seller no longer, not that they're required to pay the commission for a home for a buyer's agent, but would you just not put it in the MLS? Because that's one of the issues that came up, is that you wouldn't have access to the MLS.
Yeah, if you're not a member of that trade organization, and they're right, you cannot enter a listing into the multiple listing service. If you're not offering a commission to a buyer's agent, in some situations that is also not allowed. Now you can take a listing and put it in just the MLS only entry. However, you still have to be a realtor to do that. So that advertising model, whenever an agent uploads that listing to the multiple listing service, it then becomes syndicated. And back when AOL Real Estate was kind of beginning, you had Ask Jeeves, all these different search engines out there. They started basically pirating listings from the multiple listing service. I don't know how they got access, but that was a big issue for us agents saying, oh my God, they're taking information that we worked hard to get and they're advertising it out to the world for free. Little did people see at that time that that's actually better. It provides more transparency. But they're exactly right. So how that would work without the multiple listing service, there would have to be another system put in place. And I know that same article that you read, I think they mentioned Zillow. Zillow is an aggregator or a syndication site. So how they gain access to all of the multiple listing services all over the United States is they backdoor the National Association of Realtors, from what I understand, and they go directly to the brokerages like Remax, Coldwell Banker, Keller Williams, and they get permission from the brokers to
Mm,
advertise those listings for sale on their mega platform, because the realtor organization would never want to sell the agents out to a company that's now profiting off
mm.
of information that should be housed and held by the Board of Realtors. It's another lobby, it's another trade organization. It's Is it a monopoly? We'll have to
Yeah.
see how that plays out. But in the attorney world with divorce, a lot of people don't believe you can do it yourself, or the system's so complicated that they have to be self-educated by you. I mean, doing this for as long as you have, I know you've seen scenarios that have utterly brought you to tears because it's so bureaucratic and it's so built around that legal world as being attorneys. But you've developed that experience. I couldn't imagine somebody trying to do what you're doing from zero. I mean, I couldn't imagine, but that's how the real estate world
Yeah.
has seemed to become.
Yeah. One of the articles proposed this scenario that if, and first of all, they said that nothing's going to change anytime soon because they're going to appeal the decision on that lawsuit. But that if it did change where the seller was not responsible for the buyer's agent's commission, what would that look like for the buyer, and what would that look for as far as the buyer's agent? And they were proposing that it could go to some type of hourly fee for the agent, for the buyer's agent, for like showing homes, preparing contracts, opening doors. Can you imagine? Uh, it would be a total shift from the commission structure to paying a buyer's agent a hourly fee.
Yeah, it would become part of the buyer's closing costs. And currently, a real estate buyer in Southern California has three things: whatever the lender's charging, and they're part of escrow and they're part of title. The seller has four things. They have their part of escrow, their part of title, and both agents' fees currently. So this their agent that they hired to sell it, and then the buyer's agent that's going to eventually bring the buyer, if they don't have an agreement with their current agent to represent both sides. And again, like I stated, it's dual agency, and in some states it's prohibited by law, and I think Canada as well. But back to that, that's how that looks.
Yeah, there's always been power in the being the listing agent. Correct me if I'm wrong. And this would uh, increase that desire to be a listing agent versus a buyer's agent if this went to a different fee structure, like a flat fee or hourly rate.
That's definitely true. You have, so some of the things I've read regarding how the compensation would work, the seller would get paid a certain amount. I think some of the listings are for the super successful listing agents, those would probably go the route of being exclusive. But when you make things exclusive in a seller's market, not too big of a deal because those listings don't take long to sell. And we're in that type of market. But you start to get into more of a buyer's market with more inventory, or even higher interest rates could cause that shift as well, where sellers are starting to now have to discount their homes because interest rates are now this beginning of November 7.94,
Wow.
and back at the end of 2021 they were at 3.11. So that's not, that's both for the 30-year mortgage. And even today, they're starting to resell these arms, these adjustable rate mortgages, and that's something that's looking really good to people, but they're not that much better, maybe a
Yeah.
point less. I mean,
Mhm.
not much. So watch out for all those. But that's where that would be. And so the seller would have more exclusive listings in that market. If we had more of a less seller, excuse me, more of a buyer's market, then that would potentially change. And I think so hourly might be something that could work. It's just going to have to be rewritten
Yeah.
and figured out how that compensation works. At the end of the day, I've always been an advocate. You need to have somebody on your own side. You need to have somebody that knows what they're doing, that isn't commission focused, but people focused. They care about the client, and they sit there and they go through everything. And I did a thing yesterday on going and door knocking your neighbors. I've lost a few deals by doing this little thing, telling my buyers, hey, you need to go door knock the neighbors. You need to go find out who's who. If you got properties that butt up to the back of your property on either side and across the street for about 3 houses, you want to go talk to all those people. And you want to go knock on the door with everybody. And I take my buyers there. It's been maybe 5 times, I remember specifically, that they wouldn't move forward after that. One of them, they didn't realize their ex was there, and she had a standing restraining order, couldn't be within
Oh,
500 feet. So that was
geez.
a very uncomfortable moment at the door.
Yeah, I bet.
And then, of course, I said, "Oh, you know each other." But it wasn't, I was being happy about it because I didn't know the history up until after I said, "Oh, you know each other." Yeah, I know that. And then expletive starred and the little, yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
But so it happens. I think agents are going to come to the surface. They're going to, like you said, they're going to be appealing this. Um, the listing agents are probably going to hold exclusives for a while, but how
What would that
much?
mean? What does that mean? Like
So
you
you
have
list
to,
the
if you're a buyer,
property
you have to
with
buy
Connor
through
MacIvor.
them?
Well, yeah, exactly. So if I list the house exclusive Connor MacIvor listing through my company Realty One Group, then every buyer has to come through me. They don't get their own agent. It's very similar to new housing. In a seller's market in new housing where they can't hold on to inventory, a lot of times they take away that commission that they would offer me if I were to take my clients up to one of the new housing developments, introduce them, sign them in, and be there for them during the process. They would pay me a commission. Now, I was at a place this weekend, they don't do that any longer. There's nothing offered. So you can take your clients in there, but they're not going to compensate
Yeah.
you.
What would
With
that
regard
scenario look
to,
like, Connor, with an exclusive listing in this scenario with the change fees where you're not paying for the buyer? So you charge your 3% then for the listing, and then what if that buyer comes to you as that exclusive? Are you going to charge them a fee, or are you now making a 3% commission instead of 6?
you could very well charge the buyer that fee. It's going to be agent selective.
Mm,
3%. So whenever we're charging real estate, I always kind of think about the legal end of it. How much is my broker going to take? What am I going to be left with after this is all done? Because it's never
yeah,
100% penny for dollar for dollar for. It's not that way. So what is that going to look like? And then if I'm representing both sides, am I going to increase it to 4%, 4.5, or 5%? Because now I
exactly.
have double liability,
Yeah,
double issues. So let's say the buyer gets pissed and sues me. There's these things that have to be thought of. That I believe maybe a lot of different ways agents could go.
yeah,
They could charge the buyer. Here's the thing though, if an agent's going to be charging the buyer to represent them in the purchase, and the buyer doesn't have the money to do that, where's that money come from?
yeah,
So that's going to be more closing costs. So let's say the buyer's agent charges their buyer a flat fee of 10 grand or 5 grand or whatever it may be at the end of the day. How's that going to look to the financial end of it? It's not going to be approved. It's going to be part of closing costs. Now, if we want to play that number into the other closing costs, we can, and then we just attack that like we would the regular closing costs, but now we have a bigger number. Does the buyer
yeah,
have that much money on hand? Or another way we attack closing costs is maybe reducing the offering price. But is then the property going to appraise at whichever number, or maybe going above the property price, offering an extra $30,000 so that'll cover the buyer's closing costs? But then again, we have that question with appraisal. Will the house appraise for that much? And if the
yeah,
market is a seller's market, then it's not going to matter because that type of offer isn't going to be clean. They're going to get other offers that are going to be clean, cash, or financing, no contingencies. They're not asking for closing costs. They just want to give them the money that they're asking for the house and finish. So that kind of deal is going to be taken above and beyond somebody wanting closing costs, wanting to try to do this. And they might give them a chance, but buyers need to be aware they might not get a second bite at that apple. That first offer might be the only thing these sellers see. They
yeah.
accept something else without any response.
What's the overall kind of landscape or mindset amongst realtors right now with interest rates being so high and people not really listing or selling, or and buyers on the sideline. Yeah, I'm bringing this up to get the realtor viewpoint, because another article I read is that the lending is down by 80%, and because people are stuck in their low, I shouldn't say stuck, but they have their low interest rate, but that there's like huge layoffs in the lending market.
Yeah, Uber Eats comes to mind. If you have a car, they're a good place to go work. We're seeing a lot of that. These delivery systems. I know a couple of guys that went over and started working in Amazon delivery. It's panic time. This is where
That were
agents.
lenders or realtors or both?
Both. No,
Oh,
they're
really?
both. That's both of them. And see, lenders, some of them get salaries, so it's difficult for them to stay where they are. They're going to be let go a lot sooner.
Yeah.
Agents, if the business model is not where they get a salary like Redfin, I believe they actually pay them salary. They have a flat fee that they make. So I may wear these people out, but that's kind of their business model. I don't know if it's going to survive, but that's where they are. But currently, we're watching as this real estate market starts to really change and put people on notice. So these people are going out getting other jobs, other employment.
Yeah.
Anywhere that has that benefit, because they're paying health insurance on their own when you're a
Right.
realtor, because you're self-employed. And that's, if you got a family, that's $1,000, $1,200 a month. So if you go to McDonald's, you're earning minimum wage, but they're paying everything because you're full-time. Maybe that would be worth it, especially if you have kids that are going to need it, right? If you're
Yeah.
flying solo and you really don't care and you'll just go do your long walk on the scorched earth, if they tell you have cancer, well, that's your deal. But for people that need it, they're going to go work at these places.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of that. So in real estate, when I'm talking to other agents, I'm trying to say, you know what, this isn't going to last long. Just continue to sharpen your saw. Continue to work on your skills. Continue to be the best in your market. Continue to know where the market is. Continue to understand the real estate dynamics. Read the heck out of the news that's all real estate related. I know you're an Apple News guy. I am as well.
Yeah.
So I have my real estate tab here, and that's what I look at every morning. And I'm always up to speed on these different things. But a lot of agents, I guess they're just waiting for the deals to fall out of the sky. And then when you have a lawsuit like this that really shakes up the industry, those same agents are like, oh no, what's going to happen? I think I'm going to go do something else. And maybe that's good. It's known as the thinning of the flock.
Yeah. Yeah, because this won't be your first rodeo when it comes down to a slowdown in real estate, right?
Sometimes,
You've
months
weathered
have gone without a
Yeah,
deal.
you've weathered this before.
That was back 07. There was,
Yeah.
I think I must have gone 6 or 8 months without anything. But during that time, I was able to establish a relationship with Citigroup and get a foreclosure asset account and start selling their assets. But I didn't sit and cry and get upset and pity myself and say, oh my God. I started saying, well, hell, let's go after this because this is what everybody talks about. I don't even know what it is because we didn't have a foreclosure cycle before that. But
Yeah.
when the REO market broke loose, I was positioned beautifully, and I can't take credit. I got to give first credit to God. But then after that, I did my due diligence and I hunted one and I was able to work with those wonderful people that I'll never forget.
Yeah, I read an article as well regarding the maybe the correction in interest rates. We talked about that in the last show, maybe coming down to 5%. They're suggesting that this market will be different than the '08 crash and the rebound, because of all the people locked into low interest rates, that even if rates come down to 5, it's not going to create this huge movement of new listings.
No, it'll even make the listings that we have much more constrictive. That'll be a time that I wouldn't want to be a buyer in the market when they drop rates down into the 5s. But they even speculate, and this is Fannie Mae talking about this. They're talking about maybe not until Q4 of 2024. So where are we until then? Probably very much status quo. Not a lot of changes. Just like you mentioned, you have these. God, what was it? 64%. 64%, I believe, of the mortgages are actually below 3. Or it was very dynamic. But because of that, you have, Fannie Mae saying, well, the end of 2024. It's really hard to say where that's going to come out to. But these sellers, they have the golden handcuffs. They're locked in at 3% or lower. And to sell their house and make a move and accept a 5% higher, 4% higher interest rate. It's tough because that's thousands of dollars a month. If we're talking millions of dollars in real estate, it's a lot of money. So because they have that, they lower interest rates down to the fives. That'll suck up the inventory that we have. It might kick a few sellers off the fence saying, honey, we better do it now before, because they're going to see that frenzy too. But that's going to be a small percentage, because at the end of the day, money always seems to win. They're going to look at the cost where they are. They need an extra bedroom. Well, we'll just get a fifth wheel and park it out front and just let the kids sleep in that. It'll actually be more savings to them. Very, very good. Yeah, that's a very good point.
We were talking just a few minutes ago about the layoffs and lenders and realtors getting jobs, and it's if you're employed traditionally, I'm thinking kind of the movie industry. They actually get laid off, right? Whereas as a realtor, you get laid off, but no one tells you you've been laid off. You just don't get work, right?
Yeah, phone doesn't ring. You don't get any emails. So you start contacting the clients that were kind of on your list to keep updated and figure out what's going on. And it's the same thing. And I'm not going to tell somebody, oh, you need to hurry, you need to get out there, you need to do this. I'm not that guy either. I'm seeing the same stuff. Would I buy now? Well, I would buy now knowing what I was paying now and not expecting that to change. But also with a lot of the news is kind of speculating that we're going to see the interest rates lower next year. And if in fact that happens, you have a reduction in inflation and a bettering economy, then those rates would come down. Are we headed for that prior to the election in 2024? You have Trump you have Biden in the game as well. I don't know if the other people are going to be able to get. I don't know who's going to get all these nominations when it comes down. I guess Biden would probably have to. I don't know on the Republican end of it how that's going to work out.
Yeah,
but it always seems that everything gets a little better prior to an election, no matter who the president is. Does that make sense? I don't care if they're Democrat, Republican, Independent. They make the standing presidency. They make everything a little bit better, so that same group will continue to vote for them so they can get elected again.
Yeah.
It seems like that every year. The economy gets better, and now we have potential war. I've heard sayings that it's good for the economy. War doesn't hurt as far as the economy goes. It kills a lot of people, and it's tragic. It's the worst thing in the world, but there's some people out there controlling those dollars and cents that I think are probably like, oh yeah, let's go ahead. Just do all you need to do over there, which is dangerous. The other thing I wanted to mention something about interest rates, something to watch for. Kind of right now, lenders are charging money to let you borrow money, and they're doing origination points. So when you start to see them not charging, and you're able to go and borrow money, that's kind of a good indicator when those points start to reduce on what lenders charge to get money, because they're charging that in order to lower your rate in order so they can sell this to second market investors. So that's why they're kind of charging you those points. When those start to come down, you can be sure that interest rates will follow. So when they start to not charge you anything, even at the current levels, that's a good indicator that money's going to probably start loosening up a little bit. But all of them say, late 2024, quarter four. So prior to that next year, right now we have about 260 units for sale in all of Santa Clarita Valley. That's houses, condos, townhomes.
Yeah.
Boy, if they lowered rates to the fives, that would probably go down into the double digits, which I've never seen before, which would be amazing. And then more agents to, go maybe work elsewhere because they didn't prepare for this time. Just like you said earlier, there's no guaranteed paycheck.
Yeah.
And when you've been laid off when the phone's not ringing.
You basically get laid off after every client, right?
Exactly. And like they say, you're only as good as your last deal. So when you have a deal or have a listing, everybody calls you. Title people call you. Lenders call you. Oh, how you doing? Even other companies call. Hey, thinking about coming over here? You should come over here, see how we do it. You're going to love it over here, blah, blah. Give your own office, all this. Make your signs for free. That's another big one. 6 months, no charge for fees. That's great. But, at the end of the day, when you have nothing, Nobody calls. It's sad. It's like when I left the department. I thought, Tim, I was gonna still be in the mix, and nobody calls.
No, no, I experienced the same
Nobody.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah, I was like, I thought I was somebody. No, they all have all their old crap to worry about.
exactly. Exactly. Well, that was a great update on real estate.
Boy, I had to get into it. I wanted to know, I've been watching a lot of the stuff you've been putting out there as far as divorce. What's happening in that world?
So, what I want to talk about divorce related is just some trends and statistics with filings, the median age, um, things like of that nature. So, I had four things I wanted to go over briefly, just discuss. The first one was like the divorce rates in California. They, according to the health department, are trending down. So what the health department says is, while divorce rates in California were once among the highest in the country, they have been declining in recent years. According to the Department of Public Health, the divorce rate in California was 2.5 per 1,000 people in 21, down from 3.3 in 2010. So it's actually, even though statistically the divorce rate in California is 60%, the basically per capita is now down to 2.5 from 3.1 over the last 10 years. So that's a good stat. There's less people getting divorced. And then they basically gave the rationale on this, as the decline in divorce rates is likely due to a number of factors, including changes in marriage patterns, economic conditions, and social norms. For example, people are getting married later in life and are more likely to cohabitate before marriage, both of which can lead to lower divorce rates. So,
and I can tell you that cohabitate before, less likely
cohabitating before marriage. Yeah.
So that means to do it, if you do it, that equates to less divorce.
Yes, that's what they're suggesting. By not only living together prior to marriage and getting married later in life, they think that's a contributing factor to less divorces being filed.
That makes sense. It makes sense. Sure.
Makes sense, right? And the next stat is the median age at divorce in California is increasing, which kind of goes along with the first stat we just talked about. People are getting less, there's less divorce cases for those reasons, and people are getting divorced later in life. So the median age of divorce in California has been increasing in recent years. In 2021, the median age at divorce for women was 50.3 years of age, and for men was 52.8. And this is up from 44.5 for women and 43.8 for men 10 years ago, 2010. These are the most recent stats we have. So the age has gone from 50 to 52 for women, and from 43 to 44 for men. So,
I sent it out.
You know what's interesting about that? So I would have thought, sorry, that sciatic's killing me. So I would have thought that all these numbers would have been worse.
Oh, I sent one.
Right?
Yeah,
especially with the COVID. COVID's in that variable, right? COVID.
Yeah, they didn't bring COVID in yet. They actually went back and said that part of the reason might be the 2008 recession had people reconsider divorce in general.
Oh, interesting.
Just because of the cost.
We're both losing here. We might as well stay together, lose together.
Yeah, and that's happening now for a similar reason, because to sell the home and to go out and buy something new, or to go out and even rent, is going to be more costly than their current mortgage. There's a lot of that going on. We have people getting divorced. 2 cases this week where the settlement agreement says that they're going to continue to stay in the home together, one for 5 years. They're going to continue living together.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
right.
So and that's fine. I mean, whether they keep it, live together and stay in the home, or they keep it and one's going to stay in it and then try and buy the other out within a 3 to 5 year time period. We're seeing that too, because they're hoping the interest rates come down to a more normal rate where they can do that. But yeah, the jump, I think I read this wrong. 40 for the age increase. Men went from 43 to 52. So 8 or 9 years increase in age.
Wow.
In divorce. Yeah.
have not. I've heard in
So
That's a really big change. That's
Yeah.
huge. And what the women go from?
much of the
women
changes,
went
but
from let's see, it was 50.3 and now it's 52.8. So not such a major change.
years.
Boy, we
and
could
then-
dig into that. I wonder why that happened.
Yeah, and again, the same rationale for the most part was the increase in median age as at divorce is likely due to a number of factors, including the decline in early marriage, the increase in cohabitation, and the economic recession of '08, which is what we just talked about. It says also couples who are getting married later in life may be more likely to have children, which can make divorce more difficult and expensive, which in my case isn't with what I do isn't necessarily the case, but it
Right.
can be problematic. The next point I wanted to bring up about stats is about the gray divorce rate in California. So that's anyone over the age of 50 is how that's categorized. So they're saying the gray divorce rate in
Gray
California,
divorce rate. That's cute.
is increasing. So people getting divorced later in life. The gray divorce rate, or the divorce rate for people aged 50 and over, is increasing in California. In 2021, the gray divorce rate in California was 2.5 and per thousand, up from 1.8. So about a 0.7 increase in people over the age of 50 getting divorced. And the rationale is the increase in the gray divorce rate is likely due to a number of factors, including the increase in the life expectancy, the increase in the number of women in the workforce, and the changing social norms around divorce. Additionally, couples who are getting married later in life may be likely to divorce if they find that they are incompatible or if they have different goals for their retirement years. So these are all these stats kind of interplay with each other.
Right.
With the first one.
I think really, if we look at it, if we're going to dissect it just for a second, I think social media is a big problem. I think people are looking at things that we just never had access to before. I mean, it was hard when I was a kid finding my dad's magazines under the bed. You know, he's all dead now, so it's okay to talk about. But finding those magazines, it was like, wow, Sears catalog was nothing. These are fantastic. You know, but again, you know, that's changed to where any kid with a phone who has parents that aren't monitoring can, he goes, well, you go way past magazines and what's available online. And you can see all sorts of things that aren't even with humans. Okay, I'm going to stop there. But I think that maybe could cause it. People see what they could potentially have and then thwart what they do have.
Yeah, definitely a factor.
You hear the stories. Well, you hear the stories. What do you think?
Well, I think all of it is contributing factors. The fourth point was the cost of divorce being high. So the rationale says the cost of divorce in California can be high, especially if there are children involved. According to a 2023 study by the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers, the average cost of divorce in California is $15,000. However, the cost for divorce can vary, obviously, on various factors and things like that. So, yeah, 15,000 has been the number they've been throwing around for probably 10 years. What they don't disclose is that's per person, not the total cost of divorce. Yeah.
And this is if a couple, this isn't amicable. That would be, or would that be?
Route. Yeah.
So that means somebody's not agreeing with somebody else. They're going after it. Boy, you've heard, God, that's huge. 15 each, and they're painting it as if it's 15 only.
Yeah, and I'll be fair with you. Just when I was working at the courts and working for a law firm, the actual cost, there's probably being factored in here. Someone paying $2,500 for a simple divorce through an attorney, something like that. But I'll tell you, 30, 40, 50,000 is not unheard of at all for a litigated case.
And that doesn't include, that's just the fees for the attorneys. That doesn't include the settlement and how much they have to pay the other one.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Holy Hannah. That's just the service cost.
Yeah.
Are they going to get sued too for some sort of settlement? No, never mind. Shouldn't start that. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, I forget what the name of it is, but when I worked for a law firm, when their bill got to 34,000 and the divorce was finalized, and they stopped making payments on their debt to the attorney, they would put a lien on their home. And there's a name for it. It's something that gets filed with. It's like kind of like a mechanics lien, if you will.
A
But
les
there's something-
pendants.
Yeah, I forget what they called it, but they would file those, and they put a lien on the house so they could get paid when the house sold.
Wow.
Yeah.
That
But yeah,
is really
people rack up
yeah.
some heavy bills. Again, going back to 12 years ago when I worked at a law firm, they have what's called evergreen contracts. So you go in and they'll quote you a retainer 5,000, 7,500, whatever the going rate is, and the evergreen contract says once that money has been spent, that they can just continue to bill you, and you'll be responsible for the monthly payments. So traditionally, what would happen is within the first 2 weeks, that $5,000 or $7,500 would be gone because of all the upfront work in the divorce case. They haven't even gone to a
Right.
hearing or trial at that point. The next month, maybe get charged another $5,000, and they don't get notified that they've gone beyond the scope of the initial retainer, and they will get a bill the next month for $5,000 and just scream bloody murder because they thought that the retainer was the total cost of their divorce. And here they come month 2, get another bill for another 5,000, and the phones would ring every month when the billing would go out, especially for the new clients who didn't realize they were going to get a second billing or how much the actual cost of their divorce is going to be. Because you have an attorney charging $500 an hour, and you put down 5,000 as a retainer. That's literally 10 hours of work. That's not
Right.
going to get you far in your divorce.
And I've seen some movies, not that movies are accurate, but I think when you're getting billed, you don't have to be sitting behind your desk on a laptop, right? You can, whenever the attorney kind of works on the case in any way,
Thinks
anywhere,
about you,
any
phone
form.
calls,
Mhm.
reviews, paperwork,
There
everything.
you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's very misleading, right? That retainer, you would think, oh, so your retainer's 5,000. Okay, here it is, and then you think, okay, I'm done. Right, just
Yeah.
paid $5,000. Your boy got out of that easy.
Yeah, and people will, and I think that's why people appreciate our flat fee rate, because
Mhm.
there's no retainer. But once in a while, people won't realize that we're not a law firm. We're a legal document preparer handling amicable divorce cases. And I'll get people calling, and the first question is, "What's your retainer fee?" And
Wow.
I'll say, "Well, first of all, we're not a law firm and we don't take retainers. But why would the retainer fee amount be your qualifying factor for an attorney? Like that makes if the retainer is
So that's like
2,500."
so that's just buffer. That's like a deposit on a house. You can apply it, but you don't have to. The deposit is just if you screw something up, that gets absorbed by the attorney. That's like a gift almost. Or you can
Yeah,
apply it.
it's
Is
going to
that
be
right?
used. Yeah, it's going to be used. It's going to be billed against for it's going to go beyond that retainer. That's just
Sure,
because
sure.
there's a lot of upfront work in the process for them. That's going to go relatively quick, and then if they want to proceed, then they will get billed, and they'll need to start paying by the hour, and they'll get billed on a monthly basis. That's traditionally how that works. But
So that's your inspection fee, basically. The retainer is an inspection fee. That's
sure,
what it costs. So we might find out other stuff, but this is what it's cost to have the inspection for us to look it over and put everything strategically in line. Then we'll move forward.
yeah, and it
I
doesn't
get it.
even guarantee you to get to a certain point in your divorce. I've seen people who have started with an attorney, paid $5,000 in attorney's fees, and their money was gone. They got rid of the attorney, didn't realize it was going to be so expensive, called me, hired me to take over their divorce case. And when I said, "Send me what's been filed so far," all that was filed was the initial petition for divorce. There was no communication with the opposing counsel. There was no hearings. So they literally spent $5,000 to have their petition filed. Crazy.
Wow. Absolutely. And your
People
flat
spend crazy
fee,
money.
yeah, and your flat fee for an amicable divorce is
$1,200.
there you go, done.
Yeah. And
All the way through.
I think we're gonna have to increase our prices. I look at what other folks are doing out there. And first of all, a lot of people that do what I do, they don't post their fees at all.
Right.
I have ours blanketed on our website because I don't want someone to call me and say, "How much do you charge?" It's right there on the website. If the fee
Sure.
is too high, then they're not going to call me. It just saves us both some time. The other folks, they don't put their fees up there at all, and I don't know how their fee structure works. But when if I do ask them, I do work with some people, refer business back and forth. Some of them are double what I charge for the same thing. So it's just interesting. They might do lesser cases. Right now, we've been tracking 25-ish cases a month on average for the last couple of years. So it's definitely higher volume, but at a lower fee.
Those people that are charging more, they probably ask different qualifying questions than you. They probably say, so what kind of car do you drive? They say Lamborghini. And then they say, how much money do you have in the bank? They say, oh, well, the fee for yours is only $10,000. That's it. Yeah. So they probably, you just want to figure out what's going on, if you can help. And they're, that flat fee really is a big deal. You know, they tried that in real estate, and it seems just to have failed in every business model created. Who knows? Maybe that'll be the future. But they've tried it many times. Yeah.
There's a big push right now for attorneys to move to a flat fee structure. And I don't think they're going to go for it. It's not something they can force people to do, obviously. But the attorney's concern is that, you know, from case to case, it can vary. You just don't know what's going to happen, what the other party is going to do. You can only control what your client does and not the other. So, you know, they could probably structure it, you know, $5,000 retainer will get you from here to here. And as far as the paperwork's concerned, if we go to trial, that's another, you know, retainer of $5,000, something like that. So it's more built in, so they know what they're looking at up front versus just getting these outrageous bills each month.
You know, they would have, they would offer them, they would say, this is what it's going to cost. And then they would say, well, what's this over here? They say, well, that's the gray area. That's where you could go if this goes crazy. So yeah, I don't even know if they could even estimate that. If it was a garden variety, run in the mill, you know, just like you see, we remember as we were cops, you know, there's no such thing as a normal, typical run in the mill radio call. There's no such thing as a regular traffic stop. Everything can happen. So I'm sure if they did establish a flat fee, they'd have another sheet. Well, if this happens, then whoosh, it goes all the way through. But yeah, it's hard to do that. You know, with your job, they have to talk to you. They can't automate what you do. You actually have to converse with them. And even if you try to take AI, it's not going to do it, because then they lack the emotional intelligence that you carry. You can't, that's the most difficult thing they're having with artificial intelligence, trying to teach them the emotional component. It's been impossible thus far, and I think it'll remain that way. Same thing in real estate. I can go to Google and book a flight, or go to Expedia without ever talking to anybody, with flight, hotel, the whole 9 yards. I don't have to talk to anybody. But if I'm going to buy something that has, you know, right now currently legally caused 1.5 inches of paperwork and disclosures for just a simple home purchase in a tract in the middle of an established city with utilities and everything else, I don't know how you can change that into being handled totally by online systems. You have to look at it, you got to smell it, you got to crawl through it, you have to have inspections. Some of it can probably turn over that way, but a majority of it, you need to talk to somebody, and they're going to want to, I walk my clients through as if I'm purchasing it. I want to see everything. It's tough. That'll be tough to duplicate, same as your business.
Yeah, they've tried. I mean, there's lots of companies out there, LegalZoom and 100 other online divorce companies. But you're correct that while the issue is it possible to utilize one of those services? Yes and no. The chances of you getting it through is like 5%, because there's so many variables. You get out of it what you put into it. You put in wrong information into this automated form filler, if you will, then you're going to get the wrong output, and the forms will be wrong. And then that's just the actual preparation of the form. Then there's all the processing, the serving, how to file properly. There's a lot that goes into it, but I agree with you. It's something that will be very difficult to remove the human element from.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Anything else for the viewers?
That's all I have for you today, Connor. Are we ready to hit the music?
Yeah, that was a great show. I'll tell you this. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. This has been the SCB Insider Show with Tim Blankenship, and I'm Connor MacIvor, getting a little sensitive around Tim, but he's not a hugger, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just throwing that out there. You probably didn't know.
Something else?
Not on the air. Everybody have a good week. We will see you next Tuesday at 8 a.m. Tell a friend. Thanks, Tim.
All right, Connor. Talk to you next week.
Talk to you soon, brother. Bye-bye.